Now to this, President Biden may call on Congress to suspend the federal gas tax ahead of the July 4th weekend. NBC senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell has more.
The great getaways of summer. American drivers feeling the heat as tens of millions will spend big to fill their tanks. For many, family destinations will be spots like this, where President Biden greeted beachgoers and talked about a potential plan to reduce the price at the pump. He says he may ask Congress to back a federal gas tax holiday.
I hope I have a decision based on data I'm looking for by the end of the week.
A proposal that could save consumers the federal tax paid on each gallon, just over 18 cents. A small, temporary savings to ease average prices hovering just under $5 a gallon. This week, the Biden administration will meet with oil executives hoping to increase supply.
I want an explanation from them as to why they aren't refining more oil.
On the broader economy, some experts see troubling signs.
The dominant probability would be that by the end of next year, we would be seeing a recession in the American economy.
But the president and his team insist a downturn can be avoided.
I think a recession is at all inevitable.
There's nothing inevitable about a recession.
Let's bring in CNBC's David Faber, see if he agrees.
Oh boy.
David, it's looking pretty inevitable from here. Is a recession inevitable?
I don't think so, Joe, but, I do think it's interesting listening to Biden and obviously Treasury Secretary Yellen trying to make sure that we don't talk ourselves into one. Certainly there is a growing consensus that there very well may be a recession. Some even say that we may be in one now, which seems a bit hard to imagine, but we'll see. But at the same time, there is a psychological impact of believing that one is inevitable, and it can tend to bring it on. So it is interesting having listened to what you were playing there in terms of Biden and Yellen and other government officials who are trying to say, whoa, wait a second, this doesn't have to happen.
Yeah, I'd love your take on all the outside pressures that the economy is facing. Of course, we have a zero COVID policy in China that has really screwed up us getting supplies here, the supply chain. We, of course, have the war in Russia that puts real pressure on energy prices. And, of course, $2 trillion sitting on the sidelines during COVID. A lot of money, fewer supplies. We've also got this weird workforce situation where we're having trouble getting people to work, getting back to work the way they did before. And Meek and I were just talking to somebody earlier about how we're reading one article after another about people interviewing qualified candidates for jobs, talking about a start date, and then those people just not showing up. So it's a lot of sort of competing trend lines in this economy. Help us make sense of it.
Yeah, I know. A lot of cross currents, more than we've perhaps seen. You brought up two of the key ones, of course, the war in Ukraine certainly being such an important one, not to mention China's aggressive policy still on COVID, which has kept that economy sort of not completely on lockdown, but underperforming, to say the least. The one thing you didn't mention, though, of course, Joe, is the Fed, and that figures so prominently into what we do every day at CNBC, and you're looking right here at the background at the New York Stock Exchange in terms of the performance of the markets. The Fed is aggressively raising rates to try to stop inflation. That inflation was here even before the war in Ukraine, but certainly exacerbated by that and the rise in gas prices that we all know well about. And we'll see if they're successful in bringing that so-called soft landing. They raised rates 75 basis points, so 0.75% just last week. The expectations are they will continue to raise rates aggressively and reduce the size of the Fed's balance sheet, which had been almost $9 trillion. So, yes, there are so many cross currents. Can I help you make sense of them? Sure. Can I give you an answer? Absolutely not in terms of exactly what's coming, other than to most likely say it's going to be a lot of volatility in the markets. And a lot of people sort of trying to make sense of the latest data, whether it's on inflation, whether it's on employment, which, as you point out, remains extraordinarily strong, whether it's on savings rates and the fact that the consumer still seems to have money in their pocket to spend. So hard to know, I guess, is really the answer you're going to get from me, unfortunately.
Well, and of course, hard to exactly figure out for the layman what's going on with oil prices. People see that we have an extraordinary production capability, and yet they say, well, why can't we just drill? Why do we have to even be dependent on Russia? Of course, if you could, talk about the market forces in COVID that actually drove people away from oil exploration and how quickly we can ramp it up.
Yeah, you know, we're the largest oil producer in the world. People may forget that, 12 million barrels a day. And we are moving up, but not as fast as some would like. It takes quite a while to get the permitting, to get things moving. You can't just turn a switch. And there is another aspect to higher gas prices, which does have to do with refining capacity. It's something the president sent a letter, I think it was last week, to the oil companies about as well, because we are under refining capacity, so to speak, at this point. We just don't have enough to process to get oil and gasoline out there as efficiently as we might otherwise. And that's a key question. And of course, then we've got the larger issues, and it's something, Joe and Mika, I know that you guys know we're going to have tomorrow night on CNBC, a documentary that I spearheaded called ExxonMobil at the Crossroads, not looking at gas prices as much as the bigger question about climate change and what these companies, in particular ExxonMobil, are choosing to do as they try to satisfy the needs, of course, for consumers around the world in terms of energy, but at the same time, vastly reduce their carbon footprint. And so we do take them to task to a certain extent in trying to have them explain to us, is it real, is it not? So you've got a lot of different things, just like the economy, going on in the energy world, Mika.